Memorandum of Agreement between U.S. Department of Transportation and United States Coast Guard regarding hazmat material transportation. Parts of the Memorandum of Agreement, the U.S. Coast Guard with the U.S. Department of Transportation, Group of the Research Special Program Administration, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, Federal Railroad Administration, Federal Aviation Administration, with the DOTS Intermodal Hazmat Material Program, DOTS enters into the Memorandum of Agreement Authority, Title 49, U.S. Stand Code 301, U.S. Coast Guard enters Memorandum of Agreement Title 14 U.S. Code 93, United States Codes 93D and 141 and 148. Proof of the Memorandum of Agreement is ensured with the working relation with control of the hazmat material transportation between the parties following the transfer of the U.S. Coast Guard with the Department of Homeland Security, entering into relation parties in terms of the promote efficiency, uniform, secure with the safety system with the hazard of the material with the transportation and with the U.S. Coast Guard with agree to comply with the principles set forth in the paragraph A of the Memorandum of Agreement accompanied with the annex of the agreement that does not apply with the hazmat material function having been delegated exclusive to the Coast Guard, Title 49 CFR 146F. This agreement is designed to address relationships among the DOT agency with the background of the Federal Hazmat Material Transportation Law. Federal Hazmat Law provides authority Secretary of Transportation regulate hazmat material transportation security, safety, and security with the Title 49 U.S. Code 501 55 100 101 10 sequence with the Secretary of the designated with the hazmat material responsible with the operating administration for the provided Title 49 153B with the regulatory responsible delegated primarily with the RSPA enforcement authority delegated with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration FRA FAA RSPA with the Coast Guard with the following rule published for the August 15 2000 enforcement authorities of the brought into allow with the operating administration to include the Coast Guard with inspect with compliance transportation mode 65 Federal Register 49763 Secretary of Transportation Delegated Authority associated with the Deputy Secretary of the Director of the Office of the Intermodal and serve with the Secretary of the Principal Advisor of the Intermodal has been employed with a policy practice with the objective of the result of the dispute with among operating administration review with the minor activity coordinated with the Assistant Secretary of the Budget Program supplying resources coordinated each other. Outreach data activity addressed with the other regulatory cross-model issue warranted in Title 49 CFR 174. Although U.S. Coast Guard does not share enforcement authority, each agency with particular emphasis with the expertise involved with the U.S. Coast Guard transport shipment that has been material without water. Title 49 146U. FAA had transportation shipment that had materials without air with included manufacturer refabrication, marketing, maintenance, with the reconditioning, repair test for the container representative of the mark and certified sold with use of the bulk transportation has been material by air. Title 49 147K. The FRA transportation shipment that had material by railroad included manufacturer, fabrication, marketing, maintenance, or the reconditioning, repair, testing, containment of the representative mark, certified or sold the use of the bulk transportation had material by railroad. Title 49 149S. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration shipment that had been material of the highway included manufacturer, fabrication, marketing, maintenance, with reconditioning, repair, testing, containment of the representative of the mark, certified sold the use of the bulk control and has been material of the highway. Title 49 CFR 173D. The RSPA with the shipment that has been manufacturer, fabrication, marketing, maintenance, reconditioning, repair, testing, multi-modal containment of the representative mark, certified sold with use of the transportation has been materials out of 49 140 53B. After Coast Guard transfer, the Department of Homeland Security continued to play the integral role of transportation has been material with particular emphasis with transportation shipment that had material with the war with the Homeland Security Act with the U.S. Coast Guard Authority function personnel with the SF with the Department transfer Department of Homeland Security November Public Law number 107 296 116 Statute 2135 of the HSA with Section 8088B continuing use card authority to enforce hazmat material regulation Title 49 U.S. CFR Code Regulation 171 180 transfer to Department of Homeland Security because of the enforcement role respectively the hazmat material Coast Guard plays a role in other hazmat material regulations such as exemption and preemptions. Action with the DOT and U.S. Coast Guard are the following principles regarding the following subjects. General coordination parties will continue with the good faith effort to coordinate another activities confidential with material affected the mission area with a particular emphasis with any of the parties. Coordinated policy activities with the potential and material affected with the missions area with a particular emphasis of the parties will begin as soon as responsible practical when the party determines of the action may materially affect with the area with a particular emphasis with another party that the party notified with the other party prior to taking action soon thereafter with the regulatory and coordination with the RSPA looking to develop the issue with the Hazmat Material Regulation Corporation United States Coast Guard with the agency FAA, FRA, FMCA developing regulation RSPA seeking early frequent coordination U.S. Coast Guard issue and involving the following U.S. Coast Guard particular emphasis preparing there's a clarification interpretation concerning with the U.S. Coast Guard particular emphasis RSPA with will with coordinate U.S. Coast Guard further with RSPA with the U.S. Coast Guard will continue to coordinate exemption approval to involve with particular areas specialty include the U.S. Coast Guard review of the technical issue module perspectives and processing emergency requests. Enforcement. U.S. Coast Guard dealt with the FAA, with the FRA, with the FMCAA, RSPA, share with the enforcement, and with the hazmat material regulation, have with the do with the specialized training, cover the area which are primarily handled by with a particular agency, with the areas are followed. U.S. Coast Guard, IM portable tank frame and intermodule freight container manufacturer, FAA, the transportation by air, FRA, tanker car manufacturer, inspection, test, and repair facility, FMCSA, cargo tank manufacturer, inspection, repair facility, RSPA, cylinder manufacturer, retest, drum manufacturer, reconditioning, non-bulk certification, bulk manufacturer, third-party, non-bulk packaging certificate. Certifiers. Generally, U.S. Coast Guard, the FAA, FRA, FMCSA, RSPA, with a focus of the inspection investigation activity with the perspective of the emphasis of the head of the party during the course of the condition, conducting and enforcing activity to identify with a possible violation and with a particular emphasis of another party conducting enforcement activity to identify with the other party possible violation, soon as possible possible. Inspector will give the oral written notice, ship it to carry with the air agent, ship it to the non-compliant compliance. With a further movement to consider the willful violation party identified with the imminent head of the party will take him in the action authorized law necessary for the scope of the purpose transportation have the mitigated and included enlisting aid from the other relevant law enforcement agency with it as soon as possible the party identified with the imminent head of the notified with the party with the other area with a particular emphasis involved. If possible, violation with another party area with a particular emphasis could result in a formal enforcement action party discover the violation according with the other party with the initiative of the enforcement action with the non-inferior with the ongoing enforcement action with the determine the party should the most appropriate to take with the enforcement action based on related investigation expertise and etc. with conflicts with it cannot be resolved between parties referred with the associated with the deputy secretary with the director office of intermodulism of the intermodule hazmat material regulation program. For resolution, U.S. Coast Guard, the FRA, FMCA, RSPA continue to cooperate, planning, sponsoring, conducting joint enforcement activities in multi-agency haz strikes. U.S. Coast Guard with the FAA, FRA, FMCSA, the RSPA will enter the enforcement and central with the database address of the party. U.S. Coast Guard with the agencies continue to enter the information, includes final enforcement of the doc, unified ship of the database, or UniShip, according to the procedure with the containment of July 17, 2002 with the director of the implementation required with the procedure with the data with the entry with the unified ship of the database how the material agency U.S. Coast Guard with the enforce with the hazmat material regulation core with the relevant interpretation exemption with the data with the RSPA preemption with the federal hazmat law with the issue with the preemption with the decision with the concern with the requirement of state Indian tribe with the data RSPA will look into and the coordinate with the U.S. Coast with the preemption of the decision issue with the RSPA the delegated authority U.S. Coast Guard area particular emphasis outreach and train with the data RSPA with the coordinate with the Coast Guard with the other data agency FAA, FRA, FMCSA with the continue with the administration with the outreach program regarding with the hazmat material regulation, provide information to the industry, state, local agencies, member of the public of the Coast Guard will continue to provide training assistance for federal state agencies and industries such as with the unions for the container inspection training assistance team or sit at Coast Guard will contain and participate outreach with the RSPA with the multi-module seminar to provide public information water mode issue. Coast Guard continue to cooperate with the RSPA with the development of the training hazmat material CD-ROM training model video written material. Coast Guard will continue to participate cross-model inspector training and incentive with the with administration operating administration coordinated with the office OST with the intermodal hazmat material training international coordination. Coast Guard representing Canada, the participant of the RSP with the meeting of the U.S. Committee with the expert with the Transportation Dangerous Good with the Coast Guard continue with the U.S. Delegation International Maritime Organization Dangerous Goods solid cargoes container subcommittee with the RSP with the maintain overall responsibility content with the International Maritime Dangerous Good Code leading hazmat material regulations for the members of the U.S. with the IMO DSS DS Dangerous Solid Cargo Container Subcommittee meetings, research and the development. Coast Guard will keep each other informed. Research for the development projects after the potential of improving safety and security during hazmat material transportation. Other U.S. Coast Guard will continue to participate with the FAA, with the FRA, FMCSA, RSP, with the international meeting concerned with the hazmat material transportation memorandum agreement that does not impose with the program or resource budget obligation to either party. Parties agreed for the end of the reimburse agreements with the other arrangements if the necessary fulfill with the responsible described in this agreement. Other provisions, servability, nothing in the memorandum in the annex construed with the conflict with the current law regulation directed with the Department of Transportation, Department of Homeland Security. If the term of the memorandum agreement is inconsistent with the trust authority to serve the individual extent with the inconsistent with the remainder of the term, all the term memorandum agreement and annex remain in effect. right and benefits and nothing of this agreement until the diminish or otherwise with effect the authority agency with the carry of the statute regulatory official with the function of an intent with the carry with any of the right benefits of the same of the procedural enforcement law by party against the United States agency, officer, state agency, officer carrying out with the program authorized by federal law, any other person. Amendment of the Modification Memorandum Agreement in the Annex here to the amendment of the revised entitlement with the agreement of the Department of Transportation commandment over the commandment over the Coast Guard Secretary with the Homeland Security period of the agreement and termination memorandum agreement will be effective either for the day the final signature of the party remain effectively terminated to either party may terminate with a memorandum agreement at any annex here thereto the written notice. Points of contact: the following list of the point of contact: U.S. Coast Guard agents. Additional contact information has met material employee resource book has.gov.pugtrain.hmp resource handbook PDF. U.S. Coast Guard contains neither U.S. Coast Guard Marine Safety Officer with the area alleged violation. U.S. Coast Guard District Office under with the hazmat material employee resource book, a website, local point of contact, captain of the port, district point of contact, chief of maritime safety. For matters of individual enforcement, please contact Chief of the Hazmat Material Safety Administration, Marine Safety Environmental Protection, U.S. Coast Guard, 2100 2nd Street, Southwest Washington, D.C., 2059 3202 1573. Federal Aviation, contact one of the FAA region office of the area with alleged violation code of the matter of the individual enforcement. Please contact Manager Hazmat Material Division, Aviation Security Investigation, Federal Aviation Administration, 800 Independence Avenue, Southwest Washington, D.C., 20591 202 267 57530. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, contact with the Division Office of the Hazmat Material Employee Resource Book, area with alleged violation, cover the point of contact, Division Administrative of the point. Matters of the individual enforcement, please contact Chief of the Hazmat Material Division Office of Enforcement Compliance, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, 407th Street, South Washington, D.C., 205902023666121. Federal Railroad Administration, contact with one of the 8 regional offices of the Hazmat Material Employee Resource of the area with alleged violation, cover the point of contact, Hazmat Material Specialist. For matters of individual enforcement, please contact the Director, Hazmat Material Division, Office of the Assistant Administrator of the Secretary of Federal Railroad Administration, 1122 Vermont, Northwest Washington, D.C., 2005 202 493 6248. Research Special Program Administration, contact one of the 5 office of the Headquarters Office known with the Hazmat Material Employee Resource Book with a webpage area with alleged of the violation, point of contact Director, Office of Hazmat Material Enforcement. Minutes of the individual enforcement case placed in contact Administrator, Associated Administrator with the Hazmat Material Safety Research Special Program Administration, 400 7th Street, Southwest Washington, D.C., 205902023668553. Approved by the United States Coast Guard, Thad W. Allen, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, Annette Sandberg, Federal Railroad Administration, Alan Rudder, Federal Aviation Administration, Marion C. Blakely, Research Special Program Administration, Ellen E. Engelman, Oversight Intermodal Office Secretary, Jeffrey N. Chang. Memorandum of Understanding, the Department of Homeland Security with the Department of Transportation Roles and Responsibilities.